Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, sometimes in movies you just have to let moments sit, and guess what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where I sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals, and I pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. And if you are listening, hit subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Give us the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on the social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok, and, well, probably a few other places too. At where else? At In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So do us that kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a fun one. It is in theaters now. It is a real fascinating slice of Canadiana called Verona from writer-director Sebastian Back, and it's the story of a young girl, Camilla, who has to deal with the death of her grandfather and the dynamics in the family therein and how things get a little complicated. And she's this teenage girl who's just trying to find her spot in life, her way in life. And I mean, it's a really good piece of cinema. And I mean, it's an independent piece of cinema too, from a little bit of Canadiana that, as you all know well enough from listening to this podcast, that we love to support. And we had the unique pleasure of sitting down talking with the one and only Sebastian Back, like I said, the writer-director, to ask about the origins of the film, the nature of making it all, working the way he did, and just, you know, sort of how he's even a little surprised how it turned out. But enjoy, if you get a chance, check your local listings. Verona is playing limited runs in Cineplex near you, and also some other ones as well. But first off, check out our interview with Sebastian, because between you and me, it's a darn good one. Oh, Landmark, that's it. There's one-off screenings at Landmark, which are coming up in the next couple of days. So if you're a Landmark cinema person, check that out too. But first, enjoy our talk with Sebastian. As always, it's a good one. Just to kick
I
this
agree.
off
It's
officially,
it's
man, just honestly, thank you so much for the time today. And congrats on the movie, man. I thought it was a hell of a piece of work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, of course, easy, no problem.
Now, I mean,
Um,
walk me
Happy to be
through
here.
the origin of it all.
Yeah, let me go back to when it started, I guess. It was pretty. I mean, basically, I had just gotten out of school, I think about a year prior, or like half a year prior. And I kind of initially, I basically just wanted to like make a movie. Like I just sort of, I had not, I couldn't really come to terms with the scale of that kind of a project. Like I
Right.
couldn't really like just like hold it in my head and be like, oh yeah, like this is how I can project seeing this go like this. Or like I just was like, I don't like with a short film or something, it's easy to just be like, you just have it in your head and it's like no
Of
problem.
course, yeah, yeah.
But with a feature, I just like couldn't really wrap my head around it. And I felt like I needed to just kind of make one and see how that went. And then I could kind of process how to do it. So originally I was going to shoot, I think my plan, I basically just was going to shoot like a bunch of footage on my phone and then just cut it together, like shoot like 2 hours, 3 hours worth of footage and just
Sure.
edit it and see what that like, just like what the scale of that feels like. And then I like had a friend of mine that was going to be actually the one character, Eric, she was going to be the main character of that like sample film. I just was like, hey, like, can I just film you for like a couple of days? and then I'm just going to edit together like, an hour and a half of kind of like garbage footage basically. And she was like, yeah, totally. And I had this whole idea with like her and her partner, and we were going to like make that happen. And then I came up with like a storyline for it, and then I was like chatting with Maeve, who produced the film. And somewhere in that process, she was like, "Why don't you just like apply for telefilm funding, and then we could actually just like make a movie." So I did. I wrote the script. The first script I think I wrote in like we didn't have much time because the deadline was like coming up at the time. So I wrote like first draft of the script in like a month and a half. I think maybe even less. And then we sent it in, and then I didn't touch the project until we ended up getting funding. And then I came back to it. Yeah, and then we just kind of like I just sort of built the project out of this, and I like wrote once we got funding, I kind of revisited the script and I was like, oh my God, like what did I write? And it needed some work. So then I like spent some time working on it. And yeah, I don't know, I just like kept like I wrote like I don't know, like six different films in the process of just like writing one film. There was like it ended up being some in some weird territory for a little while, which was like really fun. And then and then it like netted out being where it is now. But yeah, it was a really cool, I don't know, it was a cool experience. I think it turned out it's like an interesting piece. And yeah, I just got to learn a whole lot about like what what that process is like. And like what's cool is I don't know, like to bring it like kind of full circle, like I don't know, after like making the film, I'm like, oh okay, cool. That's like I got out of it what I was hoping to get out of it. Like I have this like sense of like, okay, this is what this process is like, this is the rhythm of it, this is what this part feels like, this is what that part feels like. Um and just like a better sense of like where it all kind of I don't know, just like what it is and what's important about it for me and how I like want to approach it. And I got to do that with some really talented people. And yeah, and I was just like, I don't know, I was very lucky to have a lot of people be uh around me, working on it with me, like not just like being good at what they were doing, but also being very patient with me in terms of my learning experience of like how to make a full feature film, because it really was like a learning experience. I would
Yeah.
say like
Oh, for
it
sure. Yeah.
was, like I don't know, like a lot of I don't know, I find typically directors kind of work up to this a little bit more than I did. I think I just kind of was like, okay, I want to do this, and then just like semi bullshitted my way through the experience and sort of ended up with something at the end. And I'm really lucky that what I ended up with is something that maybe doesn't quite reflect the process that I went through in terms of quality. It ended up being a little bit better than I don't know, my meandering process through it. But anyway, that's maybe for other people to say.
No, but I
But
mean, to be
yeah,
fair, I think everyone semi bullshits their way through it. So, I mean, I don't think you're alone in that aspect, but
amazing.
it's one of those things where in watching it, I mean, obviously you've got a real visual style going on. It looks really good, but it definitely felt like you were giving your actors rope to kind of find the character and really sort of be collaborators and find sort of the emotional core of it all. Can you talk to me a little bit about just casting and I mean and finding the right people to sort of work with? Because I mean, again, this didn't feel like one of those films where you were overly directing them. You were just sort of letting them do their
Mm.
thing and then you were directing them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so the casting was it was a mixture of I mean like Eric and Eric plays Eric herself, and then um Mackenzie, who's Camilla's like love interest or like partner, she's played by Basha, who also styled the film. And it's like a just like one of my best friends. And it was sort of Eric and Basha had like limited acting experience, but just like are really incredible to work with, and just kind of like they just do their thing and you can film it and it's like no problem, which is really cool. And then I think pretty much everyone else in the film was working as like an actor. I mean, Kat, who played Camilla, she and I had been friends for a while, and I really wanted to. I feel like I was in, like I said, sort of was like in this place where I wanted to. There was very specific goals that I had for the film and what I wanted out of the process. And we had talked a lot about filmmaking, and at the time I felt like um, those goals were like super aligned, which was really cool. I felt like I needed a lead for the film that could kind of that I would constantly be learning from in terms of like
Right.
uh, our process and like learning about I don't know, like I don't really know that much about acting. I didn't know so much about directing. And so I kind of wanted someone who would like work alongside me in that process and like I don't know, I wouldn't get to a point where I would, somehow like know more about acting than the person that I was directing or something like this. I can't really I had some like interesting mindset about this, but at any rate, I wanted someone who would kind of like really who had similar like goals in that regard. Um, and then from there, we just kind of like built it out from there. And it was just like really interesting to work with. I mean, also to be honest, like the casting process when you're working on like your first film, you like don't maybe this isn't the same for all people, but like I didn't have like the most massive resources for it in a way. Like I didn't have like we had Jesse Griffiths was working with us for casting and like was getting amazing people for us. But also like I don't have like that big of a name and like not I'm not like super known, so I can't like pull. It's like if we send like a casting request for people, it's not like we're gonna like pull like the craziest, the like 200 people like coming in for the casting kind of thing.
Of course,
So that
right.
was kind of an interesting process as well. And then like we had some people drop out who were going to be in it, and then finding people. I think Benny and Arthur, who are Camilla's like father and stepmom in the movie. We cast them like 2 days before we were shooting. I think we went into production, and I like was on calls with them because the other two people that were going to play dropped out because I initially had some wild stuff in the script with the parents that was a bit much for them. Um, so then, anyway, so we recast and got Yana and Andy in, and they were like, I don't know, they're amazing. They were super fun to work with. They knew so much about what they were doing, and I was like constantly learning from them as well, which was like super cool. It was a really interesting range. It was like me and Kat, who were kind of in a similar space in our respective roles and what we were learning and what we were doing, and then we had like Andy and Anna, who were like very far along in their own practice and in their careers, and who had a lot of experience with like filmmaking and being on set and performing. And then we had some people that were like that's just like not what they do. It's not what their goals are, but they were like worked really well in that space. And so having that kind of range of like working experience was really interesting because it just lets you find new things and play around. And yeah, it's always just fascinating too because it's like it has I don't know, it's like doesn't really matter how where you are in this process in a way. It's like you still find ways of like coming up with the results that you want in a sense, which is really cool.
Well, I mean, it's
But
the
yeah,
old
yeah,
saying,
that
right? It
was
takes a village to do this, huh?
for real. Yeah, which is what I like about it. It's like it is, I think, the most challenging part about it because you have to, with a village comes the dynamics of a village, uh, but also comes like the wealth from like a creative standpoint. So it's kind of like it's you get like, uh, yeah, you get the best and the worst of a village in a way, which is cool.
Would you say that's probably what you learned during the whole process? Because I mean, I love your philosophy on this and just how you sort of attacked it. Because I mean, like you say, when you do a short, you can quite literally just pick up your phone and go do it. But I mean, when you have
Mhm.
telefilm funding and crew and sets and other things going on, it's a bit of a different beast.
For sure. I mean, I like at the same time though, you can just pick up your phone and go shoot a movie too.
Yeah.
And they've done it. You know, it's like it's not like that isn't a thing. I think it's more that like I don't know, what did I learn the most about it? I think like I mean that was probably like I think that's what I learned is like I could have picked up a phone and just done it. Which is what I was initially going to do. And I don't and that's not to say that that would have been a better or a worse way to do it, but it's more the idea of like there was so much there's so much stuff that I wrote, there's so many things that I experimented with that like I really wasn't I didn't know I mean I think you can see it in the film as well like I didn't really know from like a narrative and like artistic standpoint I didn't have a super strong vision going into it to be honest.
Hmm.
I had sort of like I had ideas of themes I wanted to explore. I had ideas of yeah, things I wanted to express, and I had a lot of things I wanted to express. And I had a lot of people that I wanted to work with and who I really appreciated, and I wanted to explore their inputs and So I kind of like created something, offered it to the people that I was working with, and watched a mirror come back in terms of like their interpretation of what that material was and how it would come back to me. Um, and I learned from that process that like I need to find a balance between that and like my own vision. I realized that I actually, after making the film I have, I didn't think I would care so much about what I wanted in the end, if that makes sense. There's a lot of, I would think this is true for a lot of directors. There's so many things I would change about the film. There's so many things I would do differently that
Yeah.
would match my personal tastes in certain ways. But I didn't know that before I made the film. I went into it with a completely different mindset. My mindset was like, I love the people that I'm working with, and I want to see what they're going to create with the things that I give them. And then through making it, I was like, oh wow, like I'm actually not that kind of director. And it's kind of cool to like have a piece that feels like, and this is no like, I don't want to frame it as a like, oh my God, I would have done this, and what happened with the film wasn't kind of my vision, because that's so like doesn't reflect the experience that I had at all. It's just more that genuinely that was the learning experience that I had, where I'm like, wow, I'm like, there's a particular way that I want to approach things, there's a particular way I want to see my art. And I didn't know that before making the film. And I feel like you can only learn that by doing the experience. And what came out of it was still really beautiful, and what people brought to it was really beautiful. And like I think they also all learned a lot through that process as well, which is really dope. Um, yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. It was just like what you want is the kind of the thing that matters the most. Nothing else really matters that much. Like it's like once you know this is what I want, this is what I want to get out of this experience, then everything else is going to work out. It's like it's kind of the barometer for, because you can do it a million ways.
Yeah.
Like there's like, and people do it a million ways. That's what's cool about art, is it can be done a million ways. But like how you want to do it is the one out of a million that is like important and really interesting. And I didn't have my like one out of a million. I had my like 10 different ways of trying it out, and just being like, oh, like I want to do this, and then getting like, I don't know, like my getting excited about like ideas, like my turnover of taste and things that I was appreciating, being interested in, was way faster than the process of making a feature film. So I'd be like working on it and be like, oh, like I like this thing, we should make it a part of the story, or like, make it a part of the film. And then 2 weeks later, I wouldn't be interested in that anymore, and I'd be interested in something else. And I'd be like, okay, I want to bring this whole film should be about this. And so like now I'm like, I have to find a way of like syncing up my revolving door of interests and ideas with like the slower pace of making a film. Like what is it that I'm what is how do I make something in a way that like, yeah, where I can keep a vision for that length of time.
But I
And I'm
mean,
figuring that out now. That's
that's
like,
so interesting that
but
you
yeah.
bring that up, because I mean, I've talked to so many filmmakers who, I mean, specifically during the process, they're like they shut themselves down from influences and just sort of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
don't look at anything. And I mean, just to put a bow on this, I'm kind of curious. Like, what were the films that kind of got you into this process in the first place, or was it just the idea of film in general and sort of being able to tell stories in this sort of visual expressive medium? Because I mean, again, your film isn't sort of that A to B to C narrative, it's more of an
Mhm.
emotional experience. And I mean, to me, that's what makes it more engaging.
Yeah, I think like I was really interested in, I don't know, I can't even, I think like, can't really remember any specific projects that I was into at the time, but like there were projects, there were films that I was into. But the really strong element that I was interested in was sort of this like, I did want to make something that lived between like the lines, like that lived between the scenes as well. Like having something that was and this is something that I think everyone in the project understood very well and was like working towards with me, which was really dope, was this like, and which also made it quite complicated, because it's like if it's not as on the page as it is with other scripts, it's there's a lot of, we would talk a lot about the characters and about what they were experiencing and what different things meant, because we didn't have, so much to go from in terms of like what was on the page in the script. But I wanted to, I don't know, I really was really into this idea of like a sequence of like tableaus, or like a sequence of moments in this family's life, um, that alluded towards something, but didn't really deliver that something super directly. Uh, which is like kind of hard and weird to do because you really like you run the risk of just like ending up in this like wildly abstract space that makes no sense. Um, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, I think I might have gone a little, the pendulum might have swung a little far into that space. Um, but that's fine. But yeah, I think that was really something that I was driving for. I was like, I want these like different like scenes. Um, and it sounds very like I think what's weird about the film and kind of I can't tell if I like it or not. Like I is like when you describe it, when you talk about the film, it sounds like sounds like a like sort of pseudo cinema verite like kind of like situation where it's just like fly on the wall cinematography and whatever. But then like the film isn't really shot like that. So it's like these very like I don't know. Sometimes I'm like it's this very fly on the wall story with like fly on the wall lines, and fly on the wall, like whatever. But then the way that it was shot and the way it was put together is like not so fly on the wall, which creates like a really I don't know. It sort of creates like this aesthetic car crash, which I feel 50-50 about, which is cool. I'm like very confused by something that I made. You know,
But I
I'm
mean,
like
that's what
I
makes
don't.
it hard to quantify, which is what I think
Mm,
makes the experience so interesting. Because, like you said, there are these verite moments, but it's presented in this kind of lush
like hyper
fashion, which
cinematic.
really kind of
Yeah, I
keeps us
know.
off guard. And I mean, I fucking loved it. But I mean, seriously,
It's
man.
weird. Yeah. It's weird. It's like here's like it's I don't know. It's like this weird thing. It looks like something that should be saying a lot more, which is really funny to me. It's like it's not saying that much. There's not that much happening. Uh, but it looks like the it looks like how you would shoot a film that has a lot more to say. You know what I mean? Which I think is really funny.
But it's
It's sort
saying what
of
it
like
wants to say,
yeah,
which again is a credit to you too.
yeah. Thanks.
But I mean, honestly, man,
Yeah,
just congrats on the work and thank you so much for the time today. I can't wait for more people to see this, man. It really is a fascinating piece of work. I think you did a great job.
crazy. Thank you. I appreciate
Alrighty.
it. Thanks for having me.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.